Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy will meet with President Joe Biden and deliver an address to Congress today. Zelenskyy was given a Ukrainian flag by troops during a visit to the front line yesterday. He said he will give that to the U.S. Lawmakers in Washington are working on a spending bill this week that includes $45 billion in aid to Ukraine.
And let's discuss that now more in depth with CBS News foreign policy and national security contributor Errol McMaster. Always gives us straight talk no matter what issue we discuss. He's a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General who also served as the 25th National Security Advisor of the United States. Errol, always great to have you on the program. Talk to us about what we should expect here, because this visit has this $45 billion in additional aid for Ukraine really hanging in the balance. Come January, Republicans will hold the purse strings in the House at least. How important will it be for Zelenskyy not just to thank the American public for the aid, but to now make a case to the American people to continue funding some aspects of this war?
Well, Errol and Aziza, great to be with you. You know, I think this is a really important visit because, as you're mentioning, there have been people who have been suggesting, you know, well, is it too much support for the Ukrainians? Others have been worried about, you know, could this be escalatory? You know, could Putin respond to certain types of U.S. assistance in a way that would escalate the war? But as you mentioned, you know, Zelenskyy was within artillery range of the Russians yesterday and is in Washington today. It's pretty darn powerful. And I think that, you know, the equation that we should use to assess the degree to which we're willing to support the Ukrainians is Ukrainian valor plus Russian atrocities. This is what my friend Stephen Kotkin has said equals our will to continue to support the Ukrainians. And, you know, I think what's really important, Errol, is, you know, we Americans have to recognize this is in our interest to support the Ukrainians. They are fighting on a frontier against a revanchist authoritarian power that is a threat to all of us, a threat to the whole free world.
And HR, you said it at the beginning of your answer. Is it too much? I believe the U.S. has already committed more than $60 billion in aid to Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Do you think there will be new resistance to sending aid to Ukraine when Republicans take over the House in the new year?
Well, Aziz, what's really important, I think, to recognize is that only about 17 billion of that has been direct assistance. A lot of that assistance has been to replenish war stocks and so forth. And you know what's you know, if you just think about it, if we didn't provide this assistance to the Ukrainians, what would the world look like? And, you know, people talk about, you know, ideas like an off-ramp for Vladimir Putin. But, you know, an off-ramp for Vladimir Putin is just a chance to look for the next on-ramp. I mean, if you look at his behavior and what he's done, you know, since he took power in the year 2000, New Year's Day 2000, is, you know, he's committed assassinations. He's conducted, you know, massive cyber attacks. He's invaded Georgia. He invaded Ukraine in 2014, and this is a renewed invasion of Ukraine. So, you know, when people, I think, argue that maybe, you know, we should help Putin by, you know, giving him more security and allaying his security concerns, I think they missed the whole point. I mean, Vladimir Putin is determined to restore Russia to national greatness because of his sense of honor lost after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And the only thing that deters Vladimir Putin is strength. You know, I mean, it's his perception of weakness in the West, weakness in the United States and in Europe that led to this invasion. I mean, it's no coincidence that it was right after our surrender, I mean, our self-defeat in Afghanistan to a terrorist organization, that he reinvaded Ukraine or began to, you know, prepare for that. I mean, he issued a 7,000-word essay under his signature in August, last August, and that basically, you know, said, hey, Ukraine's not even a thing. And telegraphed really what we've seen as this assault on Ukraine since February 24th.
And what is so remarkable to me is, as you've just stacked it up, you have Vladimir Putin on one side, who wants to bring back the former glory days of the USSR. He's hung on to power for so long. going up against a guy who used to be a comedian a couple years ago. I mean, Volodymyr Zelenskyy is this just stellar character who all of a sudden has galvanized his nation, has kept Ukrainian troops with high morale to the point where they are giving Vladimir Putin a run for his money. So when we look at his speech tonight, you've got some making comparisons to Churchill, right? Britain's leader during World War II. There's a real opportunity here for Zelenskyy. What do you expect as far as the impact of what he might say and what he might capture?
Well, it is going to be powerful. And the footage you're showing is 81 years ago, right after Pearl Harbor. I mean, 81 years ago this month, after the attacks on Pearl Harbor, Churchill comes with his generals to the United States to plan the campaign that ultimately defeated Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. And it's important to note that the Churchill, after the December 7th, 1941 attacks on Pearl Harbor, said, we have won after all, because he knew that with the United States in that fight, that Britain couldn't lose. So, it is going to be extremely powerful. I think you're so right about this, Errol. Vladimir Putin, right? He thought about himself as the shirtless man on horseback.
You're right.
And he looks at Zelenskyy and says, this guy is he's an actor, he's a comedian, he's a ballroom dancer of all things. But Zelenskyy has risen to the occasion in a Churchillian way, right? And has galvanized his people. He is personified, the tremendous valor of the Ukrainian people. And what I hope for, Errol, is in this holiday season, right, as Americans have been, since this polarization in our society and this lack of confidence, really, in our democratic principles and institutions, we should gain some strength, from the valor of the Ukrainian people who are fighting for the freedoms that I think we take for granted too often.
Yeah, and I think the word we're looking for when we're talking about Zelenskyy is relatable. He's relatable to the people in his country.
Yeah.
Right.
And H.R. McMaster, I love your tie. Happy holidays.
Yeah, we see the Santa on there and the Nutcracker in the background. Thanks very much for joining us.
Best all you and Aziza, go Eagles.
Okay, go Eagles. Let's hope that Jalen Hurts is out there this weekend.
Thank you, H.R.